Sometimes, certain astronomical theories must be verified with different elements. Take a cult comic book, an Egyptian artifact thousands of years old, and a major museum. At first glance, none of these elements has a direct connection with astronomy. And yet, we are going to use it to show that one should always verify an astronomical theory before accepting it as correct. We are going to revisit a theory that emerged in the 1990s concerning a certain Egyptian artifact. So, let's begin our survey in Egypt. The country of the famous Dendera zodiac, on which the constellations were carved in an Egyptian style. Champollion studied it, and according to him, this artifact would date from the 3rd century AD. To replace this grotesque datation, in 1995, an astrophysicist suggested another date based on an astronomical event, a total solar eclipse. He says that on the morning of March 7, 51 before our Common Era, a solar eclipse was observed in Egypt, and according to him, this eclipse was engraved in the Egyptian stone. To verify this statement, we will follow Herges Hero who, after getting off the plane in Lima, Peru, had to head south to find his friend Professor Calculus. We all remember that iconic scene from the Temple of the Sun, right? Herge did not invent this eclipse, he based it on a total solar eclipse, the one on May 20, 1947. We all know that a solar eclipse occurs when the moon moves between our Earth and the Sun. During this phenomenon, only a few countries can witness what astronomers call the obscuration. If you look at the map produced by NASA for the 1947 eclipse, you can clearly see a dark blue band. This band indicates the countries that were able to observe a total solar eclipse. From the location of Peru, the obscuration was less than 70%. To observe the sun totally eclipsed by the moon, Tintin had to cross the border separating Peru from Chile. When Tintin arrived in Chile, the percentage of obscuration reached 78%. To get closer to an obscuration value close to 100%, Tintin had to go even further south. If we move virtually a little further south, closer to the shadow band, the percentage increases to 93%. If we go further down to reach 100%, where Tintin pretended to ask the sun to be completely covered, we find ourselves in Argentina near to the river Mendoza. That is where the Temple of the Sun should be located, in a location called Puente del Inca. By the way, on the Tintin website, it is stated that Herge had seriously considered moving to Argentina in the 1940s. Now that you know how to decipher a NASA map, we are going to apply exactly the same verification for the solar eclipse mentioned by Eric Alborg. 100% means the sun totally obscured. To understand this notion, we can make a very simple percentage calculation. Knowing that solar obscuration is a phenomenon due to the moon's position, whether perfectly aligned or not between the Earth and the Sun, we can apply this notion of position to an observer on Earth. The obscuration depending also to the latitude and longitude from where he lives. This observer, according to his position, will see the sun partially occulted or as a ring or totally occulted, as if the observer were the moon itself. To understand this better, we can consider the Tintin's eclipse. When Tintin was in Peru, on May 20, 1947, he could have seen the sun only partially occulted because Tintin wasn't perfectly aligned with the band of shadow. Of course, these are two different moon principles, but the resulting percentage on the map is the same. Below 65%, it is strongly advised against looking directly at the sun. Even with special glasses, partial solar radiation remains just as dangerous as direct sunlight. In other words, below 65%, a solar eclipse will no longer be visible to everyone. Only certain observers will be able to see it, depending on their location. What immediately strikes us on the NASA map is that the path of the solar eclipse passes very far from Egypt. Let's check the percentage of occultation from Alexandria. In Alexandria, where, according to astrophysicist Eric Alborg, the solar eclipse was supposed to be almost total, the obscuration of the sun was 32%. And in Cana, where the Temple of Hathor and the Dendera zodiac were located, the occultation reached less than 17%. This percentage is so low that it is completely impossible for the ancient Egyptians, from north to south, to have observed the eclipse of March 7, 51 before our Common Era. The NASA data is irrefutable. Eric Alborg's theory is completely wrong. Nowadays, if you visit the Louvre in Paris, you'll see that the museum mentions Eric Alborg's erroneous solar theory on an explanatory panel. This is a real scandal, because a museum is supposed to educate its visitors, not pass on the erroneous information. The solar theory's Alborg was not submitted to a committee of astronomers, nor to an astronomy magazine. This so-called expert has never published anything in the field of astronomy. His solar theory circulated only internally at the IFAO, the French Institute of Oriental Archaeology, where it convinced members who did not possess solid knowledge of astronomy. When the IFAO put its archives online in the 2000s, Alborg's flawed theory became accessible to everyone on the Internet. That's how it ended up on Wikipedia, presented as an official source. And that's how parrots repeat this theory without ever verifying its accuracy. One can say almost anything one wants in archaeology or Egyptology. But one cannot use astronomy without respecting one of the fundamental principles of science. What is not observable is not scientific. This check leaves us with a fundamental question. When our most respected institutions, the ones we trust, do not verify their sources, who then is responsible for restoring the truth? Captain Haddock would probably have been the best end words to qualify the situation.